So today we are going to round up our directory government. I think in the last lessons we introduced it. So today we want to close it down. And it is also linked with the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. Right. So it starts with the Italian campaign. That Italian campaign involved like Italian ground, Austria, and also France. So France was led by what? By Napoleon. So Napoleon was now given command of the army, which according to Peacock, it had been carrying minor and ineffective campaigns on the Italian frontier, but was now idle and demoralized. So when Napoleon took over the French army, it was demotivated, demoralized, and it was doing absolutely nothing significant at all. So Napoleon was around, should be 27 years of age, if I'm not mistaken, and he was put in command of generals who were far senior than him, and they were unwilling to accept him. He was able to motivate his soldiers by saying, "You are badly fed and nearly naked. I'm going to lead you to the most fertile plains in the world. You will find there great cities and rich provinces. You will find there honor, glory, and wealth." That is according to Dennis Richards. So according to Peacock again, Napoleon's forces numbered about half those at the command of the Austrians and Piedmontese. Like Napoleon had lesser soldiers as compared to their enemies. So the Piedmontese were quickly defeated, and then they asked for an armistice. After the defeat of the Piedmontese, Napoleon launched an attack, right, against the Austrians, and they were also defeated. He was able to defeat the Austrians at the Battle of Lodi in May 1796. He also defeated the main forces of the Austrians at the Battle of Rivoli in January 1797. And he continued to attack the Austrians, who finally sued for peace in April 1797. So this made him a hero back home. The people were now looking up to him, not as their military savior, but the savior of all the political, social problems they were facing, you know. So the Austrians were forced to sign the Treaty of Campo Formio, where France gained control of the Rhine, among other terms. And to the French people, Napoleon exposed his military abilities, which later made him to be accepted as leader by the French people. His victory brought much happiness to the French people, such that H.L. Peacock argues that the streets which Bonaparte was living in France was named Rue de la Victoire in celebration of the Treaty of Campo Formio. They even named a street after his exploits. So in one way or the other, Napoleon was now sort of a cultic hero, or sort of a celebrity, you know. That's how big he was. So the directory politicians got so jealous of him. And the attention yevanhu vese munyika yakutoenda paari. So he might be the leader anytime from now. So what can we do? Let us take him off or take him away from France. Ndo paanobva azoendeswa kunonzi kuchi kuEgyptian campaign. Vaida kuti attention yake isawandire muFrance. So vakabva vamuendesa kuEgyptian campaign. So after Napoleon's victory in the Italian campaign, the directorate was now convinced that Napoleon can be a threat to their survival. So Dennis Richards believed that after his success in the Italian campaign, Napoleon realized that there was also need to capture Egypt, probably so as to ruin British trade in the Mediterranean. So Napoleon was offered another campaign of an army for the invasion of Egypt. So Richards argues that the director offered Napoleon the Egyptian campaign after realization that Napoleon was becoming too powerful, and that it was wise to keep him out of France, not just keep him out of France. What else? I said they wanted to keep him out of France so that he could not continue to get the attention of people. And what's the other reason why they sent him to Egypt? It's a new territory. is different from the Italian campaign, which is European. Egyptian campaign is like an African territory. Why do you think that, besides the fact that they wanted to take the attention away from him by sending him to Egypt, what else why did they do that too? What's the other reason? Can't you see that they wanted to get rid of him through the war? Kutaganda ku Egyptian campaign kwacho padano gonongoro wabva afa ndizvo. Vonyatsoita get rid of him once and for all. So with an army of 38,000 soldiers, Napoleon embarked on the Egyptian campaign. There he made several victories, for example, against the Turkish army. He also defeated the Egyptians at the Battle of the Pyramids. However, H.L. Peacock is of the view that while in Egypt, Napoleon heard of difficulties at home. Because this was not only the war situation they were dealing with. There were economic problems. I think we once mentioned about some of the problems that were bedeviling the Directory. So Napoleon heard about the problems which the French people were facing. So, and he also heard that the second coalition had been formed against France. And this forced him to rush quickly back to France with some few soldiers. And he landed at Fréjus in the south of what? Of France, right? That's when they organized the coup of Brumaire. That is the coup of 9 November 1799. So having returned back in France from the Egyptian campaign, Napoleon found France in a chaotic situation. There was a serious financial crisis, an attack from the second coalition, and the Director was facing a litany of problems to control the situation in France. So viewing this situation, Napoleon, being Napoleon, made contacts with those groups of citizens who were opposed to the Directory because he wanted to get rid of the Directory. So akabvatanga kutsvaga vanhu vakawengana neDirectory. So CS, who had become the director and he was one of the directors, was against the Directory too. And he also wanted an opportunity to stage a what? A coup. He wanted a coup is whereby you remove a constitutionally elected system. So CS, even though he was a director, he didn't want the Directory. So he also wanted something. So Napoleon So he wanted to strengthen the executive, but knew the Council of 500 would not agree to this, and that this could not be done constitutionally. So therefore a coup could be necessary, but it would have to be supported by the army. For a coup to be executed, you need the support of the what? Of the army. You need the soldiers to support you. So, but who could be relied on? There was a man called Moreau. He was approached, but he recommended what? Napoleon. So, right now, visa director government, visa what is Repam visa nechisimba nemasoja. But ndiani angaita diri. Ndiani angatungamira masoja acho. Andikubata mezi acho. That was the question. So vanhu vese vaibvunza zvangu dzayo chimwe mufana Napoleon unoona zvakaita paEgyptian iri paItalian chinotora mufana wake. So akatanga kubvunza vanhu akatomborifeya kuno umwe munhu ainzi Moreau toita sira naMoreau ayewo ndaita mutete ipei Napoleon nyaya iyi inonyatsopedzwa zvakanaka. So Bonaparte has been well received like munhu wekutanga tone popularity akudiwa nevanhu. He was a good orator. So the most successful of the Republicans army generals and the ones who had brought peace in 1797 also supported him. So Napoleon had become interested in French politics. He agreed to join CS school on one condition. He gave him a condition that if you manage to execute the coup, we are going to form what we call a consul, in which we have the 3 consuls. Yes. So we will then set up a constitution. Then CS wanted to move the council to Saint Cloud and to avoid opposition from the Jacobins in the 500 in Paris. Then once in CS on 19 Brumaire, Napoleon reluctantly agreed to address both councils. So Napoleon appeared in the Council of 500 with armed grenadiers, and he was shouted down. He was also physically attacked with the Jacobin deputies. And Lucien Bonaparte came to Napoleon's rescue when he told the troops that some deputies were trying to assassinate their generals. So the troops then cleared the hall where the 500 were meeting. So hours later, some councillors who supported the plotters approved a decree abolishing the Directory. So it was replaced with a provisional executive committee of 3 members called the Consul, headed by Abesius, Roger Ducos, and Napoleon Bonaparte. So takutopinda munonzi muchi rise of Napoleon, tichizobata inonzi the domestic policy of Napoleon. So that's it for the directory. But we don't just seal a thing. We want to talk about the achievements of the directory, right? Number one, the directory reduced the dictatorship by the individuals. Instead of having extreme views by an individual, such as what Robespierre demonstrated, a panel of 5 directors was given the control of the government. The directors would check and balance each other's powers. Like they also came up with that 2-chamber assembly. Like it was a system of checks and balances. Like the Council of Elders, Council of 500. And you find out that the mob that had dictated the revolution process up to 1794 was also extinguished. It no longer had any say in state issues. So the political stability was achieved. So the directory continued with the war effort against neighboring states, e.g. Prussia, England, and Austria. This helped in preserving the revolutionary gains. It was the directory that gave Napoleon Bonaparte the command of the army in the highly successful Italian campaign of 1796. It is his victory secured for France a military and morale booster territory for France on the left bank of the Rhine and Venetia that enabled France to create the Cisalpine Republic. So the directory also made attempts to improve the French economy. They didn't do 100% job, but they tried their best to normalize the French economy by making attempts to reduce inflation. The introduction of the assignats during the initial stages of the revolution had resulted in inflation. But they came up with a solution. I think we learned about Dominique Ramel as the finance minister, trying so hard to normalize the situation. But however, it also had its fair share of weaknesses. Like the constitution introduced by the convention was flawed. This was due to the fact that putting 5 people to rule at the same time created bureaucracy. Because apana patingapoita pfungwa dzakafanana tiri 5. Zvaizokonzeresa kuti sometimes my ideas I know pesana. And it would cause the bickering on so many issues. Pane issue da kusolvwa, then one wait 3 hours wachiitisana nawo. Urikubata medzayo. Pada paigona kutota munhu ane musoro. So the remaining 4 directors were likely to gel together and continue the policies otherwise ineffective. So by limiting the voting to the taxpayers, the convention had in effect deprived the peasants and the working class from participating in politics. And this was contrary to the revolutionary ideals that advocated for the political participation and the representation of the people. It was in total violation of the revolutionary principles of equality, freedom, and fraternity. So by having 2/3 of the members of both chambers of the assembly elected by the convention, it demonstrated the dictatorial nature of the convention. And on the economic front, inflation was not really curtailed. It was not effectively tamed. It continued to rear its ugly face, affecting the economy. And at the war front, there was stagnation. There weren't very serious inroads, except maybe that Italian campaign. And you find out that France remained at war with Britain, Russia, and Prussia. So again, the directory lacked charismatic leaders. It lacked charismatic leaders, leaders who are of the people, leaders who are pro-people. So they lacked leaders who could pull the people to their side and along with their ideas. So but having a dictatorship of 5 people meant a dilution of individual ability. Thus, there was no one to be identified with anything in credit, because papa ne ainzi my unanimous decisions, maita my decisions, same decisions muri 5. So pa 5 when you can apply ne udofo yo wai affecta misi andikubata mizacho pangu pekuti muri kuita meeting muri 5 moti ngatitedzera idea yanengi, then idea yakabonderwa mingu yaasi anoblame imi mese muri 5 munenge munonzi muri mabalance. Ndosachinzi hanzi ignore a fool to avoid noise. Anzi usatambe nenguruwe emumadhaka. Iyo ndo unosviba, iyo inotonakiwa nekusviba imo. Ndosachinzi panguva chokanetsana munhu asina kukwana, haufaniri kuramba uchiti uchinetsana naye because unenge wakutongowo futi usina kukwana futi. So therefore any misfortune such as the failure to make progress economically and at the war front was blamed on all the 5 members of the directory instead of just one. So that's it for the directory. Tomorrow we are going to touch on the rise of Napoleon, full lesson.